Okay then, you're here, I'm here, welcome back to the channel. You know who it is by now?
Jimothy.
So ladies and gents, I thought I would bring to you a rogue tier list, mainly because you already know where the meta is at the moment. Bystials, Malice, Ryziel, they're just running away with the format, and it looks like it's going to be like that for a considerable amount of time, especially with the new support announced for both the top two decks basically. So it is it's going to be a difficult one, and I need to preface this for this rogue list, like in no way, shape or form are a majority of these rogue decks going to be able to play through a typical Ryziel board or even potentially a typical Malice board, just because of the nature of those two decks. They're so recursive, they can fit in so much non-engine, it's just annoying. But nevertheless, people are still playing rogue decks, and rogue decks are definitely something to kind of like pique people's interests. But without wasting any more time, let's just get straight into the list. Now, as previous, we've got meta potential, we've got a strong option of here to have fun, which are typically going to be your decks that are just kind of like strong in a sense, but you literally looking to like resolve just like a combo, for example, and just kind of like live off the adrenaline rush of resolving your combo. You've got anime decks, which is literally just there for the memes, and you've got it's a no from me. So decks that I just would not consider playing even at a rogue level. So let's get into it. First and foremost, Fire Kings. I'm going to put this in meta potential. Now, obviously, we've seen at YCS Birmingham that this deck could potentially win a YCS because it has. But I think that it was definitely down to a very strong meta call and a very, very talented Yu-Gi-Oh player. I was actually at YCS Birmingham, and I can confidently say that there was nobody else playing Fire King the way that Dinkabu was playing Fire King. So it was actually crazy, like the amount of like technical play that he had to do in order to get himself into that situation was crazy. But the deck is very, very strong, very recursive, doesn't care too much about Ryziel. Its field spell is a little bit of a weakness, but nevertheless it's still a strong option. Very, very strong meta potential option. Sharks, I'm also going to put in meta potential. As a rogue deck, obviously, it can put out some very oppressive boards, and that's one thing I will say about some of those rogue decks that are out there. They can put out some very oppressive boards, but it's the rogue deck's ability to go second which kind of hampers the deck. And when you're thinking about the decks that you're going to be playing against, even other rogue decks, some decks really struggle. Sharks are full of lots and lots of extenders now. Every time that support comes out, they get a new extender which allows them to do just that little bit more, but it still dies to a few interactions. It's still got some very, very clear and obvious choke points, as well as with everybody playing like upwards of 18 hand traps in the main deck, it can get stunned out. However, it is quite resilient. It can still end on a fairly formidable board, and yeah, I think it's definitely a meta potential. I've put this here as well because Mermail is not on this list, because I remember saying it on my last list. I thought Mermail was busted, and I do think Mermail is a very, very strong meta pick. Like, it's way past potential of meta. It is meta. So yeah. Dragon Link, I'm gonna put that in I'm here to have fun. It doesn't really do what it's supposed to do. The Bystial variant control, which is somewhere around here, I'll probably find it in a moment. He's probably a little bit stronger, but like, yeah, Dragon Link is just not the wave at the moment. Oh my days. Mathmech, it's gonna have to be it's a no from me until they get Circular back or some way to fulfill Circular role in the deck. Like, Mathmech are just literally just gonna be the meme, mainly because there's cards out there that mimic Mathmech Circular, and they're still live today. Even cards that are being printed in the future. I think the new Utopia support gets its XYZ equivalent of a Circular, which I just think is just busted. So I do think Circular could come back to one. With the stuff that's in the meta game at the moment, I do not think it's beyond the realm of like fair, because there's cards out there that do way more and cards out there that are going to be printed that do way more. So yeah, Circular could come back. Crystron, meta potential for sure. This is just, yeah, even my own experience of the deck, as well as just seeing it being played at like YCSs, at locals, like this deck is super strong, and you can put a suite of non-engine in. It does die to some of the issues in the format, namely Dweller and Lancia. However, I've seen quite a few builds where they've kind of like teched in a few different cards. I've seen a build with the Horus engine, seen a build with the Terratop engine. I've also seen a build with the adventure stuff, which is just very, very interesting and nice to see. So Crystron's definitely a meta potential deck that could potentially step its game up if Ryzen and Malice were out of the format. So yeah, a very strong option in my opinion. Plunder Patrol, I do love this deck. It's one of my top 5 favorite decks of all time, but right now it's a no from me. The heavy discard cost, the fact that Detonator will just blow up anything that you put on the field, just makes it very difficult to play. It is super rewarding, which is why I like playing the deck. You need to be able to have some foresight, you need to be able to have some matchup awareness, as well as some experience with other decks in order to play Plunder Patrol efficiently. And even myself, I've been playing the deck on and off. It's what I combo with in my spare time. I'm still nowhere near mastering it, but I just would not play it in today's meta. Not unless you just want to sit around the kitchen table and play some Yu-Gi-Oh! Don't take it to locals, because yeah, it's a bit of a struggle. Dino, oof. I'm here to have fun. Dino's a little bit of an interesting one, and I think I've mentioned this before. It's a lot like Tempai. If you give them 2 Misc, they seem very oppressive just because you can't interact with a majority of the cards that they put on field. However, without those Miscs, or just with 1 Misc, the deck seems so underwhelming. It dies to like a single hand trap. So yeah, yeah, dinos are very, very difficult to balance just because of the prevalence of Misc and how strong Misc is. So yeah, Dino I would definitely put in. I'm here to have fun. Heroes, I'm going to put in a strong option. It could potentially be meta potential. This is just from my own experience of it, mainly because I haven't practiced some of the newer cards. I've still got my head wrapped around like the old hero build, but the newer cards definitely do add a new dimension to the deck. It still falls to the same problem. Droll, Nib can be very problematic for the deck, but it's super strong in my opinion. I think heroes what's the word I'm looking for? They're gonna get support like perpetually. It's just going to be ongoing until the end of time, and hero players will just lap it up. And I feel like no matter how much support they get, unless they get a card that reads negate that monster effect, like they're always going to be in the same position. And I feel like they've got every single tool under the sun to be able to enable their combos, but it's just still not enough. It's just still not enough. So yeah. Raid Raptors, I'm gonna put in anime deck. Yeah, it's not happening. I was playing this deck for a while, and the format's semi-code for it, but I do think it's very fragile into some of the other decks that are out there at the moment. Even playing against other road decks, sometimes you don't draw the right combination of hands. Resolving the big rank 13 Raid Raptor monster is such an adrenaline rush. Nuking your field and burning your opponent for like the attack of the monsters that you pop. It's a great feeling, but you can't consistently get to that end board through hand traps or even through your opponent's interaction. And going second, this deck struggles. You need 2 cards to start, and you need 2 cards to stick on field, which is just not going to happen in today's day of Yu-Gi-Oh! Even with some of the other rogue decks around here, it's just not going to happen. So yeah. Unchained, I'm going to put Unchained as a strong option, especially with the Feedsmith stuff. It's still very strong. It could do with its Shavara being returned, because again, there's other cards in the format, namely Kirin, that can just do exactly the same thing, and it just exists. But I do understand why it got hit, because it lent too much into Yubao. But I do think that Unchained is a very strong deck. It dies to literally every not say every, but a majority of the hand traps that are out there that are being currently played, including the Mochamis, which is just rough against. Fuwalas cooks this deck. It's crazy. It's actually crazy how much Fuwalas cooks this deck. But yeah, I feel Unchained is a strong option. Obviously, I'd probably play these top decks over Unchained before I decide to pick it up. But if you just wanted to just like play something strong and take it to locals, Unchained is not a bad option. Orcust, again, I'm going to put this in. I'm here to have fun. As soon as we get its new support, Orcust is up here. But until that happens, you're just there to have fun. Same with Telements. I'm actually going to put Telements in anime deck. Not because I feel like it's an anime deck. Telements could potentially be meta potential, but with its consistency issues, you just can't consistently make the boards that you want to make. It's so difficult to resolve them now, even with all the shufflers gone. Majority of your names are at 1. It's just not happening. You got no Kit Kalos. You have to make Rukalos with a banned card, so you have to substitute that in. It's just not happening. There's too much going wrong for the deck to be able to kind of like play at any effective level. So yeah. Dark World, I'm gonna put in I'm here to have fun, and when I mean I'm here to have fun, as in you who are playing Dark World, you're the only person that's gonna have fun. I will repeat myself as much as I can. This deck, game 1, going first, is unbeatable. Like it's got so many extenders. But games 2 and 3, when people find out that you're playing Dark World and aside in the Kryptonites, i.e. Droll, Shifter for example, the deck just dies. Like it's just it's just, yeah, just Dark World, just no. Even though there's a person at my locals that plays this deck religiously and has been doing very well with it. There's a lot of things that deck can do, especially with the amount of extenders that it has, but I just feel like it's just too fragile going second. Chimera, strong option. This is probably one of the strongest options. I wouldn't say it's meta. It dies to a lot of the things that are in the format. Hold on, let me move this over. Yeah, it dies to a lot of things that are in the format again. Going into some of these other rogue decks though, it actually will just cook them. Like it's not even a joke, it will just cook them. But I just feel like it's not as strong as the decks that, in fact that's a lie, it's meta potential. Again, it's being gate kept. There's cards in the format that just cook it, and it can't play well into Rising and Fiendsmith. And I know I'm singing a broken record or a broken song, but that's what you're going to come up against, ladies and gents. If you've not seen the results of the last like couple of YCSs, like it's been dominated by Ryziel. And when you say Ryziel, you're talking about Detonator. Detonator just destroys everything on field. Like it's just without a shadow of a doubt. It's not even once per chain, so it's just a big problem. So you just have to be able to think that, is my rogue deck going to be able to stand up to that? And majority of the time, no. And if that's what you're running into the most, then that's why you're going to have a bit of a problem. But Chimera is solid. Pearly, I'm going to put in... I'm going to put it at the top of I'm here to have fun. Potentially a strong option. The discard cost is heavy, and sometimes you kind of pay for it. You lose card advantage very quickly. You need your cards to resolve. Once you've got the big Pearly Lure to stick on field, it is a problematic deck, but for the most part it's just not something that I would pick up over the decks that are above it basically. Kashtira, I'm going to put in strong option just because of Shifter. Kashtira is still strong. Like, it's not where it used to be, and it's crazy to think that Kashtira used to be a meta deck. It used to be the meta deck, especially with Arise Heart. Effectively, it's been replaced by Ryziel in a sense where the decks play similar, where they've just got a big oppressive boss monster and just a few interactions to kind of like back up that boss monster. But Kashtira can play Shifter, and Shifter hurts every other deck apart from the 2 meta decks, so that alone just allows it to be a strong option. It doesn't really play well into removal, but that's just one of the problems with Kashtira. But yeah, Branded, I'm gonna put in the bottom of strong option at the moment. It did top YCS Birmingham, which was crazy. I didn't actually see the list. I think Galzo did something on his channel for it, but yeah, Branded's still strong. Engine decks suffer a little bit. I think Jesse Cotton made the same point, just because of like Detonator just destroying all the things on field. Like having an engine deck like Branded, where you need to resolve a lot of the engine cards to get your engine going, it's just difficult. Exo Sister, it's a no from me. No explanation needed. Like, the deck needs support, let's put it that way. Labyrinth, I'm going to put in meta potential. Yeah, very strong, whether that's the furniture build or the set 5 and pass build. Like, Labyrinth is definitely strong for a rogue deck, probably one of the stronger rogue decks actually. Let me just put this up here with next to Fire Kings, if it would move. There we go. Still think Fire Kings trumps it. What's wrong with this thing? There we go, I got it sorted. Centurion, it's a no from me. I love Centurion. I've still got the deck core. I'm waiting for a time when it's actually going to be good again, but at the moment, and at this moment in time, it's just no. Like, the deck's fragile enough, it's normal summon reliant, your cards need to stick on field, and there's just too many things in the format that just get rid of cards. So yeah, it's just no from Centurion. Vanadium, I'm gonna put in a I'm here to have fun. It's still a strong deck. Its loss in Baron has made it so it's very, very vulnerable to Nib. You can play around Nib, obviously. There's cards that the deck can produce that can play around Nib, but I just think like it's not strong at the moment. So yeah. Drytron, I'm gonna put in I'm here to have fun. Bestials, Shifter, Malice, it's just no. Drytron's just not happening. Shining Sock, I'm going to put anime deck. It is literally an anime deck. Nothing more needs to be said about that. Gladiator Beast, okay, so this is a very, very interesting one. I think if the meta changes, this could be more than just I'm here to have fun. It could potentially even be a strong option. I've seen a few combos. It's quite oppressive, especially the board that it puts out, and the monsters are massive. Like OTKing in this deck is just crazy, and there's a couple of ways you can build it. You can build the hand trappy version where you're trying to combo and end on a couple of hand traps, or you can just build the pure going second version, and I don't know which one's better, but I do think once the format changes a little bit, Gladiator Beasts could have a little bit of success, mainly because a lot of their cards do not say once per turn. So yeah, it's interesting. Goblin Bikers, I'm going to put in a strong option right now, just because, and I think they're probably up here to be honest, just because the nature of Goblin Bikers, the top deck is an XYZ deck, and Goblin Bikers just thrives off that. So for the most part, Goblin Bikers are a strong option. The boards that they can put out are quite impressive, I'm not going to lie. So yeah, something to watch out for. However, I think the representation on this deck means that players just don't really gravitate towards it, which is interesting because the deck can do a lot, especially with the addition of like Goblin Biker Crazy Beast, I think it's called, and one of the Gun Bunkers, that's it. So yeah, definitely. Magic Spectre, it's a no from me. It's got a nice little gimmick where their monsters can't be targeted, but the deck's just too weak and the monsters are tiny, and the link to is a hand trap magnet, and it will get hand trapped and it won't resolve. It's just a problem. Just don't play Magic Spectres. Lightsworn, definitely right now it's an anime deck. There's too much again. Shifter is just everywhere, so yeah, I just wouldn't. Dweller as well. Dweller's a bit of a problem, just because of Rizal, and it just means that Lightsworn just aren't doing things. Voiceless Voice, is it I'm here to have fun? Nah, Voiceless Voice is solid. It's a nice ritual control strategy. Couple of hand traps, couple of negates on field, a pop. It doesn't put out the most impressive board, and its boards are fragile to removal, but yeah, it is what it is. Bestial Control, this is strong right now just because of the prevalence of Bestials. I feel like it's better than Dragon Link by some margin. Bestials are just strong. There's going to be a time when Bestials are going to get hit, and this is as its own like quote unquote strategy won't be viable anymore, but definitely definitely stronger than a pure Dragon Link variant just because of the existence of the Fiendsmith engine. So yeah, definitely a strong option. Memento, this is meta potential, no word of a lie. Probably even better than Fire Kings. This deck does so much, and it's easy to hand trap now. However, depending on what their hand is, it can be difficult to interact with. It's easy to know what to hand trap, but be able to interact with it in that correct way, like having non-targeting like interaction basically, because they can just dodge with Bone Party, and that is just, it's so infuriating because they just get to combo and combo and combo. Lancia does somewhat hurt this deck, which is why it's kind of like fallen off, but I do think it's a very strong combo deck that is, I wouldn't say slept on, but there's lack of representation, which means that it's not seen as much as it could be. It's a very strong deck in my opinion. Millennium, strong option. This deck, I wouldn't say it's better than Bestial Control, but yeah, this deck interesting. It's very simple to play. It's got a very clear, well-defined game plan, but for the most part, it's just not enough in today's age of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, there's other decks even on this rogue list that just do a little bit more than it. So yeah, but it can play Shifter, and that literally can win games by itself. Mimighoul, I'm gonna put in meta potential. Mimighoul's solid. Zeus is still a card, ladies and gents. Like, even into Rizal, even into some of the cards, the decks out there, Zeus is still a card. Mimighoul can make Zeus very easily and play main phase too, so it's something to bear in mind. It's a solid option. Obviously, Dominus Impulse is a bit of a problem for the deck, but yo, it is what it is. It's Yu-Gi-Oh! Rescue Ace, I'm gonna put that in. I'm here to have fun. Probably at the top of him, here to have fun. It's probably a little bit stronger than that, but just its lack of starters and the nature of the the meta game at the moment just means that it's not really well positioned. Like, stuff's getting popped, you can't always resolve stuff. Turbulence has always got a big target on his head, which is a little bit of a problem. And there's just other things in the format. People are playing loads of hand traps, so you might not even make it to Turbulence. So yeah, it's worth keeping in mind. Naturia, I think I had this on here because there was a guy at my locals playing Naturia Horus, and it was very, very oppressive. But it's its own standalone deck, or even with the Horus variant right now, it's just not strong enough. Dinomorphia, whoo, okay, so yeah, I'm gonna put this out. I'm here to have fun. I don't know how it does it, but this deck seems to just top YCSs and regionals just randomly out of nowhere. Like, it has got its own game plan and it has got its own win condition. Time is a very big factor on this deck, as well as going second into boards. Like, it's just not the best, ladies and gents. So yeah, it's an interesting one. So yeah, generators, it's a no from me. It's just not happening. Your field spell's getting popped, ashed, ogred. Like, yeah, it's just it's not happening. Vanquish Soul, I know I'm a bit biased about this deck, but I'm gonna put it in strong option. Vanquish Soul gets its engine going. It can grind with the best of them. Unfortunately, it can't stand up to some of the main meta decks out there, but as a rogue strategy, it's, in fact, let me put it up here. As a rogue strategy, it's definitely a strong option. I'm not too sure of its meta potential. It does need some support. Like, if you don't see Raisin, the deck is, I wouldn't say unplayable, but like, you're just in a situation where you're on a timer basically, and you could potentially just lose the game because you don't see Raisin. So that's the reason why it's not in a meta potential, but it's definitely a strong option. The effects to tag out and tag back in is just, I think that's a really, really nice mechanic, especially with a lot of the stuff on the end boards now does target. So yeah, it's interesting. 6 Samurai anime deck, is what it is. I've got another Shining Sark on here, I don't know why, but just put that in anime deck anyway. Sprite are very strong, you know. Is it stronger than Vanquish Soul? Probably, but I'm just biased, so I'm just gonna leave it there. Yeah, Sprite's solid. It's crazy to think that this deck's been power crept out of existence, but it still does stuff. You can still make Zeus, you can still make plays. It's got in-engine negates, which is solid. It can OTK really quickly, especially if you're playing Gamma Burst. I do like Sprite. It's got some weird win condition, especially with Ninja Mosquito, where you can just crash into your opponent's monsters and just like do burn damage. So anything that's got buffed attack, it's quite hilarious, to be honest. Salamangreat, I'm gonna put in I'm here to have fun. It's a Cyburst deck. It's a unique Cyburst deck in that instance. Do you know what? I think it's probably more up here, to be honest. Yeah, Salamangreat's solid. It can set up a nice board. Going second, it can go second well, mainly because it plays a suite of hand traps. So that's always going to work to your advantage, because that means your side deck can be catered towards the meta. But I feel like it's quite normal summon reliant, and it does die to a few things. Sword Soul, this is always just going to be a strong option. It could potentially be meta potential if we get another low powered meta, but I don't think that's going to happen for the foreseeable. And the support that it got out of Supreme Darkness is good. It helps it to do what Sword Soul was already doing, but it doesn't push it anywhere past that. So that's the reason why it's a strong option. I'm actually going to take this to locals the next time I make it there. So yeah, but I do like Sword Soul. It's a strong option. It does it does have a bit of a weird Malice matchup. If you go first with Sword Soul, like, you can actually kind of cook Malice, mainly because Quicksing's Longyon, the Sinister Longyon, so he does burn damage, so you can literally burn your opponent like to death to the point where they can't resolve any of their Malice names, especially the Link monsters, because they have to pay 900 life points. So yeah, it's a bit of a solid tech against Malice, but you have to go first. So yeah, interesting. Tenpai, I'm going to put Tenpai in meta potential, only because you can make the engine's so small now, because everything's just been waxed on the ban list. Like, it's it has to get meshed with other strategies, which means it just becomes a pile deck, and pile decks are solid because they just play the best of everything out there, and Tempai is no exception. And especially with like Kaiman in the battle phase, you can OTK out of nowhere, especially if you've got other things on field. So I do think Tempai is still well positioned. I personally wouldn't play it because it's a risky strategy. Like, do you really want to go first with this deck? I'm not too sure. And if you are going first, what other engine are you playing? It just, yeah, there's too many things that just kind of like make me think, I just wouldn't play Tempai. But yeah, it's Tempai for ya. Ritual Beast right now, it's a no from me. It literally loses to all three of the Mulch armies, like Meows, Fuwalos, and Perulia, as well as Lancia being in the format. Like, there's just Dweller. It's just, there's too much going on that affects this deck for it not to be playable right now. It's a solid deck, but just no. Trap Tricks, again, I just wouldn't. This is just the deck that you play at your kitchen table, just right now anyway. Things could change. I've seen it with the Rizio stuff, and it does seem to be doing bits and pieces, but just no, you're not taking this to locals, not anymore anyway. And then the final card, or the final strategy I've got on here, is Yubal, and I'm going to put Yubal at the top. Yubal's probably the best deck out of all these decks. Like, this deck is solid. The reason it fell off is because it ran into the Molchamis, it ran into Shifter. It's just, there's too much out there that just stops this deck. Droll, multiple hand traps, Rizio just popping everything, Malice banishing everything. Like, the deck just can't compete currently, especially with the existence of Fuwalos. Like, you get punished for just setting up your deck, and unfortunately, that's just the way of Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. So this has definitely fell from grace, and it's now considered a rogue deck as opposed to a couple of months ago where it was a meta threat. So yeah, it's interesting to see. But that's it, ladies and gents. That's my tier list. There might have been a few decks or strategies that I'm missing. If I am, please get at me in that comment section below. Obviously, I can't go through every deck, but if your deck is missing or I've missed something off here, just let me know. And we find ourselves at the end of another video. As always, if you do like this content, you know what to do by now. Hit that like button, share, subscribe, all of that beautiful good stuff. And I will definitely see you guys on the next video. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.